Meeting to order, the MPC, Municipal Planning Commission. Agenda additions and approval. We have something?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We would ask that we make an addition towards the end of the agenda if possible. After item number 11, if we can have Alberta Bio Board status of application.
Okay, I'll put it down as 11B. Well, actually, no, it can't be 11B, can it? We're going to switch this up a little bit. What we're going to do is we're going to go with 12 as your status to the Alberta Bio Board, and 13 will be next meeting to be determined. We do have to have a little bit of discussion, gentlemen, about our next meeting because it is during the RMA convention. That's when it's scheduled for, but we'll talk about that when we get there. Okay, are there any other additions or none? Okay, Mr. Stolberg?
I will move the agenda with the addition.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? That's carried. Okay. Minute approval from way back September 22nd. Anybody have any questions, concerns, or errors or omissions? None. Mr. Grover gives us the wave. All those in favor? That is also carried. Okay, nothing rising from the minutes that I heard. At 2 o'clock, we will have a delegation from Avila. How do you say that, Jacinta? Avila. Okay, corporation regarding the Bitcoin mining operation that they have going. And then we'll go right into development report. Development officer 6.1. It's your floor, Jacinta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So for 2021, we have 127 development permits we've processed to date. And in 2020, we had processed 70 at this time. Subdivisions, we have 23 to date, and we had processed 16 last year. And some of the items that are on the report, Rich and myself, the walking tour with two representatives from the Roshan Sands Heights Community Association regarding the storage of docks and lifts, and which was approved at a previous MPC meeting. And it's really coming together well. It's a good project. They have all their docks stored now. And so there were a few items missing that we will be receiving. So we will bring that forward at the November meeting. But the items that are stored have been tagged, and it's really very much more organized than we've seen in the past. As well, Rich and I attended a Roundly webinar last Wednesday, yes. And it's on Bill 48, the red tape reduction to the Municipal Government Act. So we are going to have to amend our development permit applications and our subdivision application forms. There's some changes that are being brought forward. And the main, I guess, what we're seeing is appeals that would be reviewed by a Land and Property Rights Tribunal, the LPRT. And I think from the legal aspect, they feel that there may be more changes coming. So at this point, if there is a water well on a property, that would be one of the triggers for the appeal being held. If there was an appeal brought forward, would be held by the Land and Property Rights Tribunal. So I feel that may be onerous for the province to be reviewing all those applications. So I feel that there will be more changes coming. And I guess that summarizes our report for the past month.
Okay. Are there any questions, concerns arising from the report? Mr. Gender.
On October the 20th, you said that you did an environmental reserve walk. Like, whereabouts was that walk on?
That was at the Roshan Heights Community Association, and joined Rich and myself, several members.
Was that down on the lakefront?
Yes, it was. So if you recall, we had approved, or you had approved a development permit to store docks and lifts on the ER. So this was our follow-up inspection to ensure that they were tagged, items were tagged, and that they were all accounted for. So we're working at getting a complete application and bringing it to you by November.
So in there, like, I believe that there, in the past, there was a request to have some pictures taken. Were there pictures taken of the area so they don't damage any shrubs or anything like that?
Yes, we will have those for you in November. We're just compiling all the information and bringing it forward in November, our November MPC meeting.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions, concerns about the development report? Officers' development report? Seeing none, can I get a motion to move that? Mr. Clark? Did you have another question?
Nope.
Okay. All those in favor? That's carried. Okay. We're going to move right into development reports, and I see we have somebody on the line.
We've got a few on the line. Jacinta, can you identify any others beyond 6.4? Do you recognize? Got a phone number in the bottom right. And
So that would be for subdivision 7.3, I believe.
Okay, and then this.
then it just looks like 6. So if we can move to 6.4 to start with.
Okay, so just so that we can move people along, everybody's with us, we're going to move to 6.4. And that development permit 21130 lot 49 block 2 plan 072096. And I think that is on page 47 of our application. Okay. And who's taking this one again? Is this Rich or?
Yes, it is.
Go ahead, Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is proposing to relocate a 1,200 square foot detached dwelling to lot 47, block 2, plan 072096 within the Roshan Sands Heights subdivision. Pursuant to section 109.9 of the county's land use bylaw, buildings shall be of new construction unless otherwise approved by the Municipal Planning Commission. Pursuant to 67.7 of the bylaw, the Development Authority may require the applicant to provide a security deposit for maintenance, repair, or improvements associated with the building relocation or for the repair of damage to roads, sidewalks, or boulevards that may be caused in the relocation. Section 43.2 of the county's land use bylaw states, on a lot in a multi-lot subdivision, a detached ancillary building or any portion thereof shall not be placed in the front yard of a parcel. The applicant is requesting a variance to construct a 780 square foot garage on the lot and place it in the front yard. Section 23.5 of the land use bylaw provides the Municipal Planning Commission with the discretion to allow a variance to locate an ancillary building in the front yard of the parcel.
Thank you. I think what we'll do for the people that are on the phone, we'll do a quick introduction of who's here. Hopefully they can hear us. And I'm going to start with Jacinta, if I could, and we'll go through to Mr. Gender after that.
Jacinta Donovan, Director of Planning Services.
Ernie Gender, board member.
Paul McKay, board member.
Dave Grover, board member. Justin Stevens, board member.
Russ Stuhlberg, board member.
James Nyberg, board member, chair of MPC.
Craig Teal, Director of Parkland Community Planning Services.
Andrew Pershik, Director of Municipal Services.
Larry Clark, board member.
Back to you, Rich.
Rich Fitzgerald, Development Officer.
Turn it off, just watching.
Perfect. There you go. I hope everybody got that. I know some people didn't have their mics turned on, but hopefully, if you have questions, just speak up. So is there what do I have out here as far as Mr. Stevens?
I think I'd like to split this up into two parts. One for the permit to relocate the house, the other for the variance. I believe I'd like to take, down the road, I'd like to take a further look at changing the bylaws to just make this variance a little more clear. Seems to be a consistent issue along the lakefront.
Yeah.
I think this one makes a lot of sense. There's no access through the lake. The garage has to be in the rear. So I would like to move forward that we approve the variance initially.
Okay, so actually, we'll do the variance afterwards, I think, because we have to have the development first, and then we'll do the variance afterwards, so. And I think that makes sense, and also to that, I think we have in the works that we are looking at changing the land use bylaw, because you're right, we do a lot of that already, so. So what we'll do is, we are gonna split this into two, I think that makes sense. What we'll do is have, the approval for the, house first, and then we'll do the variance afterwards. So that makes sense. Does that work for you, Rich?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So,
I think through chair to administration, I'm reading building shall be of new construction unless otherwise approved. I'd like a little background on the new guy. I'm trying to catch up, little background, what the intent behind that is.
Mr. Grover.
Because we have guys pulling granaries out there and trying to turn them into houses. That's why that thing is there, so that we look at every individual one on an individual basis. And that way, then I don't have to build a new house up there or whatever. I build a nice house and then somebody pulls a granary in beside me. That's why it's there.
Perfect. I just wanted the background on the intent.
And intent is, they bring one in and, the newer ones or the other ones, the fire code to pass the wiring and stuff like that, that's all part of it. Okay?
So this is a discretionary use development permit. And now I see, and I want to say, am I saying Cry, right? Is that the correct name? Jacinta?
Right.
How do I say her last name? Sear. Sorry, Susan.
Oh, yeah.
I see you're on the line. Would you like to make comment to this, Susan?
There we go, now we can.
Yeah, we can now.
Okay.
Is there anything you'd like to say? Oh,
Sorry, Susan, you gotta leave yourself unmuted. Sorry, I'll ask that
Okay.
one more time. Yeah,
Okay, I got it. Can you hear me? Yeah,
technically.
it's Susan Steer, and yeah, that's what, basically, we want to put the home, and it was built in 2013. It all has new wiring, everything's good with it, and then we're putting a basement in, and doing, so the basement will be about 4 feet, 3 to 4 feet above grade, and windows in it. So everything, the house itself is, we had an inspector come in and everything's perfect on it, so.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question about what the foundation was going to be, so that's perfect.
Yeah, it'll be on, Donnie, are you on there?
I'm
He's on
assuming
the,
Smith's iPad. Let me just ask to unmute Mr. Smith.
oh, you don't.
The other one.
What about phone number?
We just have a phone number, sorry.
7808.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, that's Don's.
Okay, there we go.
So, yeah.
Hello?
There we go, we got you.
Hello? Hi. Good afternoon.
Go ahead, Don.
How are you doing?
Good. Did you have any comments on the?
I heard lots of the comments. The foundation it's an engineered structure by a company in Edmonton called SCI Systems. And we've used the system in the past. It's walls are 60, and it's a 9-foot wall. It will extend under the ground by 4 feet, but there's a grade. I was talking to the county, and there's a grade requirement we have to do, so we'll probably end up somewhere around 3 feet out of the ground when the grading's done.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Mr. Stewart.
What I was wondering is a home of this type, is it a fit for the residential community in that area? Does it actually match.
Well, it's a bungalow. And the house across the road was moved on and it was a bungalow and they kind of did the same thing, but they have the walkout in the back. So it's going to be a like, kind of, it would, I think it will fit in. And the house beside us is a box. It will look nicer than the house beside us is a box. I think. So
It's a 30 by 40 structure, which is 1,200 square feet on a single level, and it will have a finished basement. It's only 6 years old. I provided a number of pictures with the development permit, so I think there's no reason why it wouldn't be a good fit.
Okay, and I don't think we have architectural controls in that area, do we? No, so
We just,
we're at a limited scope of what we can do for it. It's a good question, but absolutely it's limited of what we can, as a board, can do. So Mr. Stevens, in your area, would you like to move this forward?
Yeah. I will,
Yeah, get your mic.
Begin to the mic.
I will, move this forward that we approve it. And is it possible to have add the condition of they provide the inspections that they, said that they had previously done?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you got that, conditions that they provide us with the inspections that they've previously done. Are there any other conditions that anybody would see necessary? And that's okay, Mrs. Sears? You're okay with providing those inspections?
Like the home inspection?
You did some inspections?
Yes, we did.
Okay, you can provide those to the county?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Not a problem.
Yeah, perfect. That's not an onerous condition then, so that's good. Any other questions or concerns? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. There you go. So thank you for that. Of course, there's conditions applied and you have those, you'll have those in front of you or given to you by the county. Okay, now we'll go on to the issue of the auxiliary building in front of this. So, Rich, I'm not sure, you can give us the Coles notes on this, I guess.
So the applicant is proposing to build where is it here? 784 square foot garage. So it's a single story garage. And place it in the front yard. It will still meet all the required setbacks. It'll be more than 25 feet from the front property line. And I believe in the site plan it was about 8 feet from the side yard. So it meets all the required setbacks. Just that it's an ancillary building and it's not supposed to be situated in the front yard is the only variance that's needed.
Any questions or concerns about that one? Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the variance.
For the garage, okay. Any questions or concerns? Seeing none on that, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And opposed? One opposed, that's Mr. Grover. Got that, Marlene? Okay, so that's carried. Thank you for that. I'm not sure if Dawn's still on or Susan's still on, but thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm still on.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, very good.
All right, thank you. Okay, now, do we want to move to 7.3? What's the flavor of the board to accommodate Smith's subdivision?
I think we should.
Okay, I have the consensus that we're going to move to 7.3, and Annika, you're ready for that?
I am.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The proposed subdivision is to create an approximately 22-acre parcel out of an unsubdivided quarter section. The property is located 9.4 kilometers southeast of the hamlet of Indiang and is located within the agricultural district of the land use bylaw. The subject property contains a residence on its northwest corner. The remainder of the property is undeveloped and used for ranching purposes. The proposed parcel is located in the southwest corner of the quarter section. It is separated from the remainder of the quarter section by a county road allowance as well as a former railway right-of-way. The subdivision complies with the fragmented parcel provisions of the MDP. It is not only fragmented by the man-made feature, but is also separated by two individually held private titles, one owned by the county and the other by a private landowner. In terms of road widening, the subject property abuts 3 county roads. Range Road 15-2 to the west of the property is less than the county's preferred 30-meter road allowance width. As such, the dedication of an approximately 5-meter strip of land for road widening is recommended. There's also a 20-meter wide road allowance along the northern property boundary. The road appears to be used for agricultural purposes and only services the subject quarter section as well as the quarter section to the north. County policies allow for road widening exemptions based on site-specific circumstances. In this case, no road widening is recommended due to the low usage of the road. And for similar reasons, it is also recommended that no road widening be required for the road allowance that is fragmenting the proposed parcel. And as per county policies, the proposed parcel requires the installation of an approach off Range Route 15-2. There's already an existing approach to the existing residence, so no approach upgrades are being recommended for that parcel since there is no change of use intended. And in terms of the Rural Development Fund, no Rural Development Fund contribution is required as the fee was waived at the March 24th MPC meeting. And approval of the subdivision is recommended subject to conditions 1, 2, and 3, which are standard conditions about survey, taxes, and addressing. And then condition 4 would cover the road widening, and condition 5, the approach construction. And I believe Mr. Smith is joining us online. And that would conclude my presentation.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Triggered to ask to unmute. You'll have to confirm on your iPad. Should be popping up asking if you'd like to unmute.
He's on the iPad, but he may not have mic set up. I don't know. I'd like to go ahead, Mr. Stover.
I'll start on this one. There's just a couple things on the conditions I'd like to draw to this board's attention. And one is the access approach. There is one in place already. If you go to page 93, the very bottom, when the county constructed this road new in 2010, it put in a double approach there to serve the 2 quarters. And the piece that you can see at the bottom of your screen on page 93 is it accesses the quarter to the south. It's used heavily, so there's no grass growing. But the piece, the north half of the double piece, it's not used because the applicant accesses that piece right now from the undeveloped road, but it's already there. There's no need to construct another one. That one is there, even though it's growing with grass right now. And I think another piece of condition is when the applicant pitched this to us before he decided that he wanted to have a separate title here, he wanted to know what some of the conditions might be, so if it was too onerous, he wouldn't bother. And at that time, we told him that a descriptive survey would be good enough for that fragmented piece. So I think we're kind of going back on our word if we change it now. And also, I think I did mention that the county built a brand new road there in 2010. It was probably the first road I built when I got on council in my area. So we know that the county won't be widening that road again. It has been built once, even though at that time, it was a short piece of time where we did it within a 66-foot right of way, but still in that area, that road has already been rebuilt. So I don't think we need the road widening either.
Okay, so would you make that your motion with those 2 amendments to the conditions, or 3 amendments?
I will make that a motion to go with the descriptive plan, and that the approach is already in place, no further approach required. And that no road widening agreement is required on that piece either.
Okay. I just have one question or concern with that. Should we delineate that for future use, delineate that approach down there? If it is grown over with grass, is there some way that it should be delineated? He could throw up a post or something just to, or one of the delineation posts to just make it noted that that's where it is.
On the county built the fence, they put a gate right there.
Oh,
Nice. The gate.
Bob's your uncle.
Gates there, that's where we get access from.
Okay. No, that sounds, then that's why the area representative is here. That's
So I
awesome.
actually drove down the other day to take a.
Perfect. Okay, no issues there then. My question is completely, so we have a motion on the table with the two condition, or three conditions to be changed a bit. Go ahead, Mr. Gender.
Like it appears that the fence is already back to what there would have been, say, like with road widening. So like with the power poles still on the old, say like right of way, if we had changed that over to, say like where the road widening, would power poles then be requested to be moved back?
I guess I'm a little confused to what you're saying there, Mr. Gender.
Okay, I'm just kind of wondering, okay, with the poles on the picture that we're seeing, it looks like they're on the old right of way. The fence looks like it's been put back down to.
Depends wherever you want, I guess. It's where it's actually at. But I'll go ahead. Mr. Teal, do you want to say something? Or Annika?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The picture specifically on your screen, the power poles are at the edge, just inside of the public right of way. The owner, the applicant on their own volition put the fence back, which just happens to correspond with what looks like the widening to keep the cattle from going down the road allowance and staying on his own private land. So just to be clear, where you see the power poles in that photo, that is where the current edge of the public road allowance stops.
So they're in the public road allowance, so there's nothing that has to change there.
I'm just saying, say like in future, say like if we changed it, said, okay, there's road widening, would the power company then have to move those poles back to the road widening?
All right. Well, okay, so we got a couple of three here. I'm going to go with you, Mr. Teal.
Can I answer the question first?
Yeah.
Generally speaking, the answer is, otherwise it'd be very expensive. Now, in my experience, if they were, that would wait until your next reconstruction project, or if they were redoing the line, you already knew that you wanted them relocated, they would contact your Public Works Department to get approval of that alignment under your franchise agreement.
Does that answer your question?
I just wanted to be a little bit more clear, so in time, if this board ever makes a decision to road wide, is a burden then going to be put onto the power company that they would have to carry it out? That's the only thing.
Unfortunately, it would be on ours. We would have to pay to have that done, but I'm not sure that's going to be the case. And Mr. Stolberg, you'd like to make a comment on that?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say in the past, it's always been the county's, and the policy, if the county wants to widen a road, they're responsible for the cost of needing a power line.
Is that clear, Mr. Gender? Okay. Any concerns other than that? So we have a motion on the table with the three conditions to be amended. And Marlene, you're clear on the three amended conditions? Okay, then I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried. And to the Smiths, I'm sorry we couldn't connect with you, but technology always isn't the best. So hopefully that works for you. Okay, now we will go back up. Seeing nobody else is on there, we were going to go back up to 6.2. Netigo, page 33 of your package. 6.1.
0.1.
Sorry, 6.1. Yes, I was ahead of my time. Sorry.
Excited for internet towers.
Yes, I know. You know me. I like, gotta go after the internet. Thank you.
Thank you, Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is proposing to install a new manufactured home on lots 13 to 18, actually. So we're not next. She's going to be consolidating 18 with the other three lots. So block 3 plan RN 68 within the hamlet of Nevis. The property is within the hamlet commercial land use district, which provides for any suitable dwelling as determined by the development authority, provided that such use is listed as a permitted or discretionary use in the hamlet residential district. Manufactured home is listed as a discretionary use in the hamlet residential district. Section 67, manufactured homes of the land use bylaw stipulates conditions of approval to ensure the exterior finish complement the design of the manufactured home. Subject property is located immediately adjacent to Highway 12. The applicant has submitted a roadside development permit application to Alberta Transportation to provide for the placement of the manufactured home 40 feet from the provincial right-of-way. And the applicant has received approval from Alberta Transportation to install the home. And there's some improvements required for the access, which will be done under Alberta Transportation's requirement.
Thank you. Just so everybody is on page 27, I apologize. I had you on 33 there. So, Mr. Stevens?
I'll make a motion that we approve this with the conditions that Jacinta listed.
Okay. Any questions or concerns? Mr. Gender?
Just want to wonder now, okay, section 67 for manufactured home, like this is a brand new home. Like, why would we want to be questioning, say, like the exterior of it?
Only if it was, it would just have to meet that. Some of the new ones don't have a nice exterior either. Go ahead, Jacinta.
This is pertains to the decks or any additions that may be added. So it would, if sometimes people add a porch or so it would have to complement the home.
We don't want them attaching a chicken coop to it. Okay. Any other questions, concerns? You're good, Mr. Gender? All good. Then I will call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Now we get to go to the internet. 6.2, page 33. And Rich or Jacinta? Jacinta.
Yes, so the applicant is proposing to install a 130-foot communication antenna and structure on the northeast of 1635-16 west of the forest. Communication antenna and structure is listed as a discretionary use in the agricultural land use district, section 72 of the land use bylaw. Section 52 communication antenna and structure provides guidelines to ensure the installation is completed in a safe manner. The Government of Canada's telecommunication towers are federally regulated by Innovation, Science and Economic Development, formerly Industry Canada, under the Radio Communication Act. ISED also requires compliance with Health Canada's Safety Code 6, which limit the public's exposure to radio frequency, electromagnetic fields, and ensures public safety. Co-location is a requirement under our land use bylaw. The applicant has indicated there are no existing towers within the subject area suitable for co-location of the new hardware. A tower owned by Netico is located on the northeast of 935-16 west of the forest. However, the current site was not feasible for construction of the new tower due to limited space at the top of a small hill. Public consultation, a decision by the Development Authority to approve the development permit application would be circulated to landowners within a 1 mile radius of the proposed tower and published in the Stellar Independent. An appeal period of 21 days from the decision date would be in effect. Upon a decision by the Municipal Planning Commission to approve the development permit application for the communication antenna, the county will notify landowners within 1 mile radius. An abandoned well search revealed that there is an abandoned well formerly operated by Trident Exploration located approximately 800 feet from the proposed location of the tower on the northeast of 1635-16. The subject property is accessible from a developed yard site located on the west half of 1635-16 west of the Forth. The northeast of 1635-16 west of the Forth is also accessible from Range Road 16-3.
Thank you. And I think the well site that you mentioned is the issue is if we were building a house. So I think we're cool with that. Mr. Stoller?
I would like to move that we approve this application and send a box of chocolates too. It's a wonderful addition for the internet in the Wymore area.
I agree. We can use more internet all over the place. Okay, any questions or concerns? I'm seeing none. We're going to move this quickly. All in favor? Quick before they change their mind. Okay, 6.3, development permit. Who's taking this one?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is proposing to develop a second detached dwelling, 576 square feet, on a parcel of land less than 80 acres on the northwest of 3820 west of the 4th. This is a discretionary use within the agricultural district. The parcel consists of about 10.9 acres. The application has been submitted on behalf of the landowner by the contractor proposing to construct the detached dwelling, all back construction. Existing utilities will be extended to this dwelling, and the existing approach will be used to access the county road, so no new approach or no new access to the county roads.
Mr. Stolberg?
I would like to move this forward and prove it as it's been summarized.
Okay. Again, this is a discretionary use, and typically if it's farming use, we have a second dwelling, but it's the amount of acreage that we have. So, okay, Mr. Gender.
Okay, now they're saying that they're gonna be hooking up against the existing sewage.
Yep.
And water.
Yep. Are we good?
Yeah. And it all complies.
Okay, Mr. Grover?
I'm ready to vote.
All right. Any other questions or concerns? I am seeing none. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay. And then we've done 6.4, so on to 8. And I'm not sure how we did this in our package, but I've got 8 and it's 7.1. So
Sorry.
awesome, but we're going to keep on moving with 8, 7.1. And page 56 of your package, subdivision 2021-19. And Annika, you're taking this? Yeah. Awesome, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the proposed subdivision is to create an approximately 8-acre parcel out of an unsubdivided quarter section. The property is located 1.4 kilometers west of the hamlet of Red Willow and is within the agricultural district of the land use bylaw. The proposed parcel contains a residence, accessory buildings, a driveway, and shelter belts along the eastern parcel boundary. There is also quite variable terrain on the parcel that the applicant uses for pasture or as pasture for his horses. And the terrain can be observed in photo 1, which is on page 58 of your package. There is quite a hill in the back, and that's pretty much where he drew the parcel, the western parcel boundary. The features on the property allow the subdivision to be classified as a farmstead removal under the municipal development plan. No road widening and no approach upgrades are necessary. And in terms of the servicing, the proposed parcel contains a field system with septic tank as well as an existing water well for which the setback requirements can be met within the proposed parcel size. And since it is a farmstead removal, no rural development fund contribution is required. It's recommended that the subdivision be approved with the standard conditions pertaining to survey, taxes, and addressing.
Awesome, thank you. Mr. McKay?
I'll move that we accept this proposal with the recommendations listed on it.
Or the conditions listed, yep, okay. Any questions or concerns? I'm looking around, seeing none, so I'll call the questions. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay. And Annika, you're still on the hot seat? 7.2, page 72 of your package.
This is subdivision file sub 2021-20 for the co-address. The proposed subdivision is to create an 8-acre parcel out of an unsubdivided quarter section. The property is located 13.4 kilometers southwest of the town of Stedler. The proposed parcel contains a residence, accessory buildings, a driveway, and shelter belts along all 4 property boundaries, all of which fall within the criteria to be considered a farmstead separation. The proposed parcel meets the size requirements of the land use bylaw. The one point of question within the land use bylaw is the shed that is located just to the south of the proposed southern property boundary. The land use bylaw requires a 3-foot setback from any property boundary. The applicants have stated that they would like to keep the shed as part of the proposed remnant and are willing to move the property boundary just a little bit to the north to accommodate the 3 feet.
So sorry, they're keeping the shed on the main parcel?
Yes, the proposed remnant.
Fair enough. Go ahead, sorry.
Subject property abuts Range Road 20-4 to the east. This road does not have the county's preferred 30-meter road right of way and approximately 5-meter strip of land for road widening at no cost to the county shall be provided. In terms of the approaches, there's already an existing approach to the proposed parcel as well as the remnant parcel, and no upgrades are necessary. However, in terms of the sightlines, if you look on page 76 and 77, at photos 4 and 5, you can see that there's quite a bit of vegetation in terms of trees and shrubs that are blocking the sightlines. So that can be accommodated as part of the clearing of trees through the county. For the servicing, the proposed parcel contains an open discharge system. With the parcel boundaries as proposed, the required 90-meter setback from the open discharge point to the property boundary cannot be maintained. Appendix C of your package, which is on page 83, contains a possible option to relocate the open discharge to a point that would meet the 90-meter setback to the property boundary, as well as a 40-meter setback from the house. The blue circles within Appendix C indicate the 45-meter and the 90-meter distances in regard to the existing system. And as you can see, it doesn't fit within the parcel boundaries as proposed by the applicants. The orange circles indicate the setbacks after a possible relocation of the system. But with that, the western parcel boundary would have to move about 62 meters to the west. And we have accommodated that within a condition to allow the applicants to relocate the system and move that western boundary about 62, we said 65 meters to the west, just to accommodate that, just a relocation. In terms of the Rural Development Fund, since the proposed parcel can be considered a true farmstead separation, no additional development fund contribution is required if it stays at the 8 acres. If the appellants were to increase the size to accommodate the relocation of the open discharge system, a $1,000 contribution per acre above the 8 acres for the farmstead separation would be required. And now moving through the conditions. So condition 1 is addressing the open discharge. There are 3 options that are provided. They can, under A, prove that the system meets the setbacks, B, relocate the system, or C, replace the system with one requiring smaller setbacks that fit within the proposed parcel boundaries. Conditions 2, 3, and 4 are the standard survey taxes and addressing. Condition 5 addresses the road widening, 6, the clear cutting of trees, and 7 is in regards to the shed setbacks. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you for that. Mr. Grover.
Move it with conditions.
So the conditions, they have the option of 3 for the sewer.
Yes.
So it's their choice to move that.
Yes, they can move it. They can prove that it meets the setbacks as is, or they can just an alternative system.
So are they aware of the extra costs, like if they have to go with in the field?
Yes, we did discuss it with them, and they weren't sure which way they would go yet.
So this will be an option for them to decide which way they want to go. Also, say like on the trees for the entrance, they will be trimmed back.
Yes, so that would be as part of the condition. Once the road widening is taken, the county can come in and clear those.
Thank you.
Mr. Grover.
And the last name is Cougars.
Just on that clearing, when you start seeing spruce trees and stuff, when you hear trim and then you hear clear, I think we need to look at these line of sights because those trees are very much part of people's yards. I know from a safety issue, we need to make sure it's safe, but on the same sense, I think sometimes they can be trimmed versus cleared.
And I think that's the intent of this, is to have a conversation with the county to have that taken care of. So
But we, in the past, we've had some cases where we think we should go in and clear and they just need trimming, so.
Yeah, and I think if this individual comes back to us and has a discussion, and they could bring it to council to have that discussion on how much trimming and how much clearing is being done, so. So they have the three options of expanding this. Do we have to bring it back if they expand it with how many acres are they looking if it went 65 feet to the west?
I believe we were calculating it to be at just under 2 acres.
Okay, so it'd be basically $2,000 to make that move, and then they're good to go. Or a different field system or whatever. Okay, everybody's clear about that?
But that is their decision.
Yeah, no, that's their decision. That's what I'm saying. I just so that when we did it, that we made sure that it was, and we don't have to bring that back. If they make that decision, no headache for them. They can make that decision and go forward with it. Okay. Any other questions or concerns? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried with conditions. Okay, excellent. Next on. I think we've done that one. So I think we're into, the other guys are coming in at 2:00, right? They are here, so let's bring them in if we can. That'd be awesome. If they're willing and ready, then that will make our meeting just move perfect. Ahead of time, gentlemen, that's nice to see. Mr. Grover?
Mr. Chair, I will be leaving at 2:00.
That is absolutely understandable.
I will.
Come on in.
Understandable or unacceptable?
You be quiet or I'm gonna get the razor up.
I got a friend now that'll join me in the bearded crusade.
Oh, my God. Oh, there's another one. They're popping up every. Well, what happened to him?
Yep.
What happened to him? Grew out here and the hair pulled off the top.
Hey, at least it grows wild here. It's not growing so wild up there.
Welcome, gentlemen. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some introductions first, and then we'll introduce ourselves, and then we'll have you, and I'll give you the floor. And we'll start with Jacinta. Donovan.
Lisa Donovan, Director of Planning Services.
Any gender, board member, good afternoon.
Paul McKay, board member.
Dave Brewer, board member.
Justin Stevens, board member.
Russ Stulberg, board member.
James Nyberg, board member and chair, Planning Commission.
Director of Parkland.
Worship Director of Municipal Services.
Larry Clark, board member.
Rich Fitzgerald, GIS coordinator and development officer.
We'll go in the back with Marnie. Annika. Okay. And introduce yourselves, gentlemen, and the floor is yours.
I'm Leonard Van Veetu with Avila Exploration. I'm the president and CEO of the company. And Ryan Snitzer is land manager for the company as well.
It's Brian.
Brian.
Sorry, Brian. Okay. Go ahead.
I guess congratulations in order. Hopefully, you guys are all pleased to still be members. I know it's a lot of heavy lifting, and I commend you for that. So I appreciate the audience for ourselves here. Avila, as you know, has been working in the area for a number of years, and we've always have not taken for granted the support from the county as we struggle to get through these tough times and back in order. And we certainly are pleased to say that we are. And one of my things that I had voiced earlier to Jacinta was that, it's our intentions to be a very healthy member, stakeholder within the area. And I think we want to just make sure we could voice that to yourselves here, that we're not just here on a lark. It is really an intended effort that we've made. And as you probably know a little bit from my history, being operator in the area previously, before some of the struggles in the 10, 12 years ago, that, it's sad. I would like to think you're supportive of this, is that the amount of infrastructure that's rolling up is being labeled as liabilities when the reality is the assets that we own, if they were to be replaced, if it was even possible to replace one, would be over $200 million to have the pipeline infrastructure that we've taken on and continue to maintain and keep in good service. And some of that, when we did buy it, we thought was going to be property decommissioned and presented as such to the county. So it's been a little bit of a struggle for us that way, but we certainly intend to make amends and get things in order budgetary wise. But more importantly, I wanted to emphasize that because the way that the lands were held in the area for the previous 40 to 50 years, essentially under a gas unit, it was a dysfunctional unit for the last 25 years. So there was no activities through the last 2 or 3 commodity cycles because of the dysfunctionality of the unit. It was being operated, drained, facilities were being underutilized, the pipelines were being underutilized. Everybody got frustrated that we're in the area, and they just essentially found a better place to go operate. No fault of the county, just a matter of how things developed. Ourselves, as we struggled through it, and some of yourselves can appreciate it, that unit got dismantled by the Alberta Energy Regulator. And now essentially most of the lands have either reverted back to Crown status, or the lands that we maintained to hold up the infrastructure and financially make them viable again. But it's what should have been done in 3 to 6 months, took 2 to 3 years to do. Only because it's not too often that a unit gets dismantled, and that's the reason why it existed for 50 years. But what that did do is it discouraged development in the area, because there is geological settings below and above this unit that never were developed because of the dysfunctionality of the shadow of the unit. So I know that's not part of today's presentation, but I wanted to give you that background, that the reason why we're doing we'd like to submit the application for a change of use on this particular parcel of land, is that this particular parcel of land was a natural gas processing facility that no longer is required because of the new way of how we're processing the gas out of the area and how we're selling it into the grid. But more importantly, some of the things that you may, either as personal stakeholders in the area or as county members, we've been approached numerous times by small businesses and other developers, private operations in the area, and saying, hey, do you guys have any available natural gas for purchase? And the reality is what I'd like to emphasize prior to explaining this, the reason for us making this investment in the area and the application, is that we see, my background is geology and geophysics, so it's not just me as an engineer or as a businessman, but me as understanding the potential for the area. And I think the reason being, as much as it's a little bit against the grain, of the common, public sphere that's going on maybe outside of Alberta, is that you need energy to develop up even small things such as dairy farms, other small businesses, other things like that. And natural gas is going to now have to be imported into the area as opposed to being exported out of the area if there isn't somebody like ourselves that has the time and energy to actually bring in investors and carry on. And I think that's the part that I'd explained to Jacinta, which thank you for giving us this audience, is that's our intention, is to be essentially an advertiser and a promoter of the county of Stettler, as opposed to being just one that comes in on bended knee constantly asking for favors. No, it's about saying that, hey, we know we have a good partner in this county of Stettler, and making an investment here in the county is a good decision, and that there isn't a bunch of pushback as you sometimes hear within the public sphere. So, and as a result of that, that's the reason why we maintain the pipeline infrastructure, is that it wouldn't make financial economic sense to go off and build these pipelines from scratch. But it does make sense to go keep using new technologies extended drilling, all these sorts of things, keep the pipelines in order, develop up the natural gas that's in the area to the benefit of the region, plus obviously the economic value of the company. So as a result of that, as a foundation to get through the volatility of natural gas, we became a power producer. And we did that by way of submitting an application and making all the necessary requirements with the Alberta Energy Regulator, as well as the keeping within the thresholds of the utility board. We don't have any intentions at this time to go up beyond that, where we have to go get third-party regulations. And, you know, everybody speaks to who our consumer partner is, and that's being the fintech business, which a lot of people like to call it just Bitcoin mining. But the reality is it's really about fintech. And I like to point to one basic fact. The World Bank of Canada spends $4 billion a year on electricity. That's what fintech is. Fintech isn't just about Bitcoin mining. You know, every time you open up your app and you're running that security, that's how much electricity that they're burning. So it's not, you know, we can all wave the magic wand. This is a business that is obviously expanding out to other parties, you know, some of your pay providers, all these other internet technologies are all use this type of computer equipment. So as a result of that, you know, as we migrate away from the Bank of Canada and these sorts of things, whether this is the right direction or the wrong direction, it's a business for us. They have the longevity, the capacity, and the willingness to grant 5-year contracts. And it's those 5-year contracts that we are relying on for the generation of electricity that provides a baseline that gives us the motivation to do additional drilling and development in the area. So I just want to give you the motive behind it. It isn't about, we're not involved in the Bitcoin mining business. We're in the energy business. But part of the energy business is creating a good sound environment for electricity. And this is behind the fence electricity. We currently have no intentions of developing up the electricity to supplement the grid. So you're not going to see big power lines. You're not going to see large transformers. You're not going to see all these other big developments that some people struggle with, right? So, but at the end of the day, we're just using the existing pipelines, the existing gathering system, the existing processing systems, all being slowly brought up to better and better standards. Less of an eyesore from possibly where they were in the past. And the application that we're presenting to you today is just the formal change of use as far as the existing licensing that we have for natural gas gathering and power generation to where we're going to expand it slightly further, still with under the thresholds of having to involve the EUB, and us providing these storage requirements for the installation of computer equipment that the company that we are providing electricity for. The expense for us, at the end of the day, we expect the paid value or the assessed value rather than the paid value, because I know it's difficult to understand the assessed value. We'll be spending about $3.5 million out here in terms of warehousing, some of it temporary, and the permanent installation of the power equipment. You were nice enough. I've provided copies. I don't know if I have enough copies for everybody, but I'll present these. But sent up for hers. I didn't bring a USB, but I did have an image of the existing site. We went out and took a recent air photo and to support the plot plans that we developed up. We'll be adding to we have repurposed the existing buildings in the area. We have removed all of the discontinued gas processing equipment that was no longer needed. So there's been a significant amount of cleanup that's already occurred. We've brought the existing area roads as best as we could back into service whenever asked, to provide support. The company will be employing between 6 and 8 permanent people just on this site. Obviously, it doesn't really speak directly to the county, but there is a lot of regional spin-off that's going on already with what we're doing. We definitely strive to use local services wherever possible. Electricians, gas fitters, cranes, all the services around that. Certainly by us providing investment in the region, it doesn't hurt to help out and make sure that those services are maintained here for other uses, such as the exciting developments that you guys talk about every day, and some of the non-exciting ones, but it's all part of the parcel of being a community, and certainly we recognize that. So that is the reason for us bringing the presentation to you. It's not asking us to bully through or ask for an expedited approval or anything of that nature, other than the fact that, we are sensitive to things that of noise and that sort of thing. We did over 1.5 years ago already circulate to over 12 landowners in the area and ask for their concerns. There's a shelter belt in the area. We have no concerns about increasing the size of that shelter belt. To this point, we have had no concerns even from the immediate landowner, Wayne Holt. We talk to him daily and they come by curiously quite often. But, if there needs to be, we've already commissioned a acoustic study to just understand where we are today in terms of our distances away and the sounds that are going on in the operation. Until we have an understanding if there is concerns, the mitigation or putting up, right now the whole site's fenced for security, but at the end of the day, if we have to start weaving some materials into the fencing to absorb some of the immediate noise or change the frequencies of those noise if they become irritating, because it's just not about decibels. Sometimes it's about just the types of noise, and that being, with the purpose of, caraganas and poplar trees and that of nature create a shelter belt very quickly within 1 or 2 growing seasons. But we understand that takes time. So if we have to do some immediate mitigation because of the sound, the testing that we do, or getting some direction from an area resident. Other than Mr. Holt, I don't see anybody within 1/2 mile of us, but it doesn't mean sometimes the land does crazy things and noises bounce, right? So if it just takes some kind of that type of mitigation to avoid any kind of reverberation of noise, we certainly are open to that. So I leave the floor with that understanding, and hopefully that gives you some indications of what's driving things behind us. It's not just about, we're going to go do some Bitcoin mining and forget about the rest. It's the other way around. It's really just providing us a baseline of revenue so that we can turn around and do the development in the area and grow the infrastructure and bring all the pipelines back into service and provide some positive spin-off to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Grover, you'd mentioned that you needed
Yes, I do. Thank
Okay,
you.
I will give you your leave, sir.
Thank you.
Be well doing it. Just one thing, I wish you did have a whole bunch of transmission lines because they do pay good taxes, but that's another thing. Go ahead, Mr. Silver.
Our county always welcomes new and good development, and especially that utilizes the resources we have within our community. And I think it's great to see this adoption and diversification of your industry. I think it's very important to keep things going for the economy of the area. I don't know a ton about Bitcoins and the generation of this electricity, but I understand it does create a lot of heat. Is that something down the road that would be another option to add something like greenhouses or something to utilize this extra heat, or am I totally wrong on that?
That's not something that hasn't gone past with us. The first step in the industry is they're quite skittish. So as a result of that, the small types of arrangements that they do where they do things modular, and the modular being temporary is more along the lines of not wanting to go too far outside of their comfort zone. But my background being from my last name is being a Dutch boy is that, I understand greenhouses and that sort of thing. There certainly is. If you were to put up a structure and start to capture that heat and transfer it over to an adjacent structure, that the spin-off would be that heating a greenhouse would certainly be of interest. I always joke about it. Everybody talks about cannabis and all those sorts of things. And I joke about the fact that, my background is you make more money growing tomatoes if somebody would just figure out how to raise capital the way that cannabis does, right? So, vegetables can make more money than cannabis. So I agree. Yes, exactly. These are the things that was the other reason I appreciate the question, is because to start doing those cluster types businesses, first you have to have a partner that's very comfortable that if they make that capital investment and is embraced by the community, then, re-engineering and doing further expansion is certainly possible. And if we had a perfect world, we'd be out there drilling right now and building an adjacent facility at one of our other existing land locations. But, we don't want to get the cart too far in front of the horse. So the reality is the resource that we know is in the ground, or we feel very comfortable is in the ground, once it gets proved up and online and producing, the chance for expansion and doing that kind of a clustered business plan certainly exists. There has been seed crushers and all kinds of people that are concerned right now, or just even just drying grain is becoming difficult. I know that some of the guys that are drying grain are having a hard time getting access to natural gas to do so, right? So.
I have Mr. Stevens and then Mr. Clark next.
For starters, I'm sympathetic to the plight of some of our natural gas producers and what they've went through recently. So these sorts of outside the box solutions to help make them more viable, it does make sense on many levels. Couple questions. Your site, will it be solely this new use, or will there be some mixture of natural gas production, processing, or is the natural gas being used strictly for power generation?
No, we're, been through enough challenges in the world. We still sell 50% of our natural gas to TC as the common stream operator in the area. So we directly sell, and right now most of our natural gas ends up in the hands of Suncor. So we make sure our counterparties are good, healthy people as well. We've dug ourselves out of a hole. We don't have any intentions of getting back into that kind of problem. So.
And if I understood you correctly, that you intend to remain under the threshold of power generation where you won't have to make applications to Alberta Utilities Commission or any of those provincial boards, is that the intent?
That's correct. And in fact, there is two other sites that we have within our gathering grid that are approved similarly to the one that's currently under development. So if the natural gas was there and the volumes were there, when you start, the other side of the coin is when you start committing to a 5-year contract for electricity, we want to make sure we got the gas in the ground, that we get to the end of the 5 years, not evergreens. They've already made the bullish commitment to evergreen the contract for up to 5 additional years after that. So, our partner is a healthy group out of Asia, but they're not, they're Australian in orientation. So, they're a good counterparty to have as well. They've been in business for over 15 years, so it's not their first little attempt at this. Very financially viable.
Mr. Clark?
Okay, it's just, looking backwards, but I could see you up here before, but
New meeting time now, I apologize.
just questions on the fact of, from a taxation basis, you're starting to, you are talking about decommissioning a lot of your production equipment that was out there. In order to bring this client's equipment in. I've asked some questions last week about what this taxation on these Bitcoin facilities, which it doesn't sound like there's much taxation there. So from a county's basis, we welcome producers in the area. We know we still benefit from your pipelines and your generators, but it still comes to the fact with a lot of counties throughout the RMA and in Alberta are questioning the fact of where could some more of the tax generation come from on this?
Yeah, well, I'd have to say that it's going to have to be off the spin-off because I'm going to speak as a businessman, right?
Yeah.
The Royal Bank Canada has an office here. You don't get to tax their revenues.
I know, but their equipment isn't sitting on that site either.
No, but it's temporary use, right? I've also been a landlord and their equipment is removable and installed and removed, right? So it's temporary in nature, so it's not really inaccessible.
Every compressor is movable because we move lots of compressors in the oil field.
Right, I understand that, but I'm not going to get into that argument, but I don't.
It is something that.
To speak to them though, they simply would go someplace where that would not be the case.
It's getting harder to find the spots though.
Well, you know what, the world's a big place.
Yeah.
So, and to that end, absolutely. And I think I hear what Mr. Clark is saying. Ultimately, we love to have more business. The reason we love to have more business is because they pay taxes.
Yeah.
And it's a symbiotic relationship that we have to have. If businesses didn't pay tax, we may not love them as much as we love them.
Yeah.
So, and they further the community's development on every portion that we do. So that is something, this is a new world. We are totally understanding that this is a new world and how that taxation to the Bitcoin world is going to come to fruition. We're not sure. We, from the county standpoint, I think, and I can speak for the county in this, we're excited about it because we see some opportunities. We also see that there's, like you said, 8 to 10 people working. But on that same token, what the benefit is to us as the business side of the county of Settlers, businessman to businessman, our business is taxation.
Yeah.
We need to make it, and every business has to have that symbiotic relationship where it's beneficial for me, it's beneficial for you, everybody makes a little bit of money. Nobody takes too much out of the supply chain, everybody takes their little bit, it makes for good business. If somebody takes too much, forgets to pay, that really hurts the system. So that's where we're at. So.
Yeah, no, and if I could expand on that a little bit, the roll up of wells and infrastructure and stuff that's been going on is because, of this legacy of 50 years of a unit and a lot of these minority guys in this SRP program. Half the problems of the dysfunctionality of the unit was the poor maintenance when people were asked to make their contribution to an old well to be replaced with a new well. So the activities as us in an area and being a new developer, as we start to drill, which our intentions are actually to start drilling this drilling season, is that there will be an immediate spin-off to the county as a result of the new wells being drilled and the new infrastructure being put in place, which, I can't speak to them. When I say that, some of the mine and management is based in Australia, but the company is registered in Canada. It is a publicly listed company in Canada. So it does pay taxes in Canada. And so at the end of the day, where they pay taxes is really about their business premise, right? So
where do you see this, Leonard, as far as you're putting and it's fairly new to me. There'll be C-cans basically to house the computer equipment. And then you have an electric generator run off natural gas, correct? That's what I'm seeing.
That's correct.
So where do you see for the landowner? So let's say you come to James Nyberg and you have a lease with me. It's, let's say a 2-acre lease with a well on it. Do you see paying the landowner any more money for the C-can for the generator, or does that stay as a flat rate?
No, I see that being assessed as you would, as the mechanical costs and the infrastructure costs of that equipment, not unlike a gas plant or something else would be taxed, right?
Okay.
So I'm not asking for any tax release.
No, and that's good news for me, because what that says is I see the landowner getting a little bit extra funding, and I see the county getting a little extra funding. Again, nobody can take too much out of the system without it breaking, but if everybody gets a little bit of their fair share, everybody will be happy.
Right, but for me to liberally say that somehow that there's some kind of a streaming business, we're not in the business. I didn't take any of that risk on. I have no interest in it.
And neither do we.
It's exciting to watch and see, it's an amazing evolution, right?
And that's what we're looking at it. If we can get taxation off the infrastructure, we will be very happy on this. That'll be something that we will encourage you, and we will do what we can to help you move down the road. And the farmer as well will be the same way, right? I can see that as something going forward. To me, I see this as a regeneration of the what I would call maybe the sagging field that's been in the county of Stettler's.
Yeah, and to just, it's a morbid analogy, but I'm going to put it forward anyways. Myself as a geophysicist, if God came down to me and said, or if I was a cardiologist, and if God came down to me and said, okay, you get to go back to the grave site and you get to use today's technology, and I'm going to give you 20 guys that you thought that you could have revived if you had today's techniques available to you. Same thing exists in the oil and gas sector. This is a field that's been neglected for over 40 years for a region. And none of the new technologies that have evolved in the last 40 years have been applied. So as a geologist and a geophysicist and an oil and gas producer, we're kind of excited about this. It'll take some time. It took a lot of time for the government to find its way through. But what's exciting, should be exciting to both the county and the landowners in the area, is that the footprint doesn't have to get any bigger because of the extended drilling that can go on these days. The lowered cost for drilling, so you can do horizontal wells and use an existing lease, or revive or renew an existing lease, and that revenue will continue on. Where I'm sensitive to the fact, and Ryan is too. We know that, we're getting, because of our pipeline infrastructure, we get a locate every second day from another guy wanting to clean up an old well site, right? So we're sensitive to what's going on, how things, everybody's rolling up the carpet and calling it a day kind of thing. So, we truly believe that we're not just being, contradictory to what's going on. We have a rational understanding of, good riddance. Get out of the way and just let development continue on, as opposed to just being a naysayer for the last 40 years.
Mr. Clerk, go
Yeah,
ahead.
Leonard, we do welcome that, any increase in industry. It's just, you have to understand where I'm coming from, is I worked oil and gas my whole career.
Yeah.
And ran some units that were ran very well, so.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe that unit you were in wasn't run that well, but, with that, we've also spent the last 4 years trying to get tax agreements set up with oil and gas companies that didn't pay their taxes. So if this is a viable thing that we're going to see our taxes, that's great. But we need to, as we're going forward, it's taken a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of dollars to get us back to that point where we collect back on those taxes. So that's great. This is new technology. People don't understand. We're getting phone calls about equipment popping up on site. So I think maybe community engagement, when it is your neighbors, maybe it's a little bit, with this Bitcoin operation, I don't know what risks are if people know they're there, but on the same sense, there's a lot of neighbors seeing this equipment and wondering what the heck's going on with it.
Sure.
And that's what I hear. I'm about 10 miles south of where your facility
Yeah,
is.
no, fair enough. Absolutely. And And, you know, and I just don't, it's not my place to start saying how this stuff should be taxed. You know, it's a new industry to everybody, right? You know, I do both oil and gas and mining. And ironically, the word mining actually is a good financial instrument to be talking about when you talk about this, because, you know, realistically, if you want to be a cynic, they're mining fictitious coins, right? Until they sell it, they haven't realized a dollar. So that's like mining for gold. Until you sell gold, it's just an inventory, right? So, you know, this is, you know, so some of what they're doing is gaining, you know, the confidence of their investors and creating an inventory of essentially what is perceived valuable instruments, right? And so this whole taxation thing is really something that, for me to just simply say, well, they're making money hand over fist. On paper, it might look pretty good right now, but until you sell it, you know, gold's only as good as what somebody's prepared to pay for it, right? So.
And unfortunately,
It's a little outside the scope of me.
Unfortunately, in the taxation world, and I hate to say it, but it is a realization. We really don't care if you make money. What we care about is what you're using to make money with. It's the value of the property that it's on. So
Exactly.
from our taxation and our little.
That's all I'm getting at, is I don't want to be the guy reaching out and talking about intangibles, right?
No, exactly. Neither do we. So
And so what we're talking about is the tangible part, right?
yeah, and I like that. I like that a lot.
And we want to build and you know, if we could prove up the resource, what we hypothetically believe is in the ground still, then, you know, the chance of the second facility going up and another tax base developing for the county is stronger. But I can only be a promoter and an optimist to a certain degree, where I have to be a pragmatist too, right? And so us presenting ourselves here today is just that. We're looking for you, generally speaking, wanting to embrace what we're doing. So they say, okay, yeah, we trust you. This is the place we're going to do it. We'll put our flag in the ground here in a much more
Concrete way.
right? So,
Mr. Gender.
Yes, I was confronted by one neighbor of yours up in the area about a mile and a half across, saying, okay, he's used to very much see silence, and it is quite a bit noisier than what it was.
sure.
So there's that, and then they say the liabilities of that site, that is still your responsibility.
That's correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, we're not removing ourselves from that. It was a decommissioned site in terms of its natural gas used for the processing system, but we understand that it'll be part of a reassessment, you know, based on the installed equipment that's going to be there, right? So, and
That's good news for us, because that was really what we were trying to get a handle about, is what was going to be that reassessment and that install, and find out what it looked like for us. And that's encouraging news for me anyways. I think that's huge that we have an opportunity to utilize this going forward.
you know, and outside the scope of that is that, as you guys are aware, these lands and the other lands that we have in the area we own. So it's not a leased situation here. So we have a vested interest in the lands itself, right? Not just thinking about it.
Okay, one last one, Mr. Stevens, and then I think we've.
Two parts. You said you did some acoustic testing, but your site plan shows future containers, or the potential for. Would you be open to continuing with that testing if you were to expand?
Absolutely. No, our intention, what we're doing right now is we have, through the test phase here, we're using the reciprocal generator, which it's a big 12-cylinder rattly old piece of equipment in a temporary trailer. So it doesn't even have the proper baffling that a normal installed unit would be. A turbine's replacing that, which is a different entirely acoustic signal. So that's why we're out doing the acoustic testing we're doing right now, set a new baseline. And the expansion, it would be our intention to do the expansion immediately after gaining an approval. But we want to have an understanding of what we anticipate the noise to be, so that we can be, in the front of it, as opposed to asking to wait for a complaint. It's our job to be on the other side of it, mitigate the problem as opposed to wait for a complaint. That's just not the way we're going to drive the bus here. I know there's a little bit of other people have been a little bit zealous, some of the craziness that's going on in the world, but we're here, and we've explained that to the guys. We're here, and they're a great customer, but it's not the end of the world. We're not going to die on that hill.
Good mufflers make good neighbors.
And lastly, I have also received phone calls from several residents, and I think part of what's driving this is it's new. Not a lot of people understand it, myself included. Would you be open to some sort of open house public engagement for the public that does have questions? Is that something you'd be open to?
Sure. No, for sure. I look for the blessing of my customer to talk about it in general, but I can certainly talk about it from an educated point of view of how it all fits into the world. This is a crazy thing, and a lot of people don't look back in history, but the Bank of Canada didn't exist until after World War II. Before that, all commerce was done between banks on a good faith basis. The last bond that the Royal Bank of Canada personally issued didn't wind up till 1970. So up to that point, the banks in Canada were actually the old-fashioned crypto world itself. It was all good faith, and there was no central depository or central bank.
Some may say that was a better world. I'm just going to.
So, in a roundabout way, I think that this community probably understands that. And I respect the fact of that too, right? But as a community, you guys work through it all, right? So that's what these guys represent as independence. Right?
One small little thing.
You're lucky, under the wire.
No, you also have to realize a lot of the neighbors have not been getting paid like lease payments from some of the oil and gas companies. So that's part of that communication, that you are up and coming and you're building a business that's going to be there for a while, just to build that trust in the community.
Yeah, unfortunately, you're painted with the same brush.
Yeah.
There's been numerous times where Ryan's kind of grit his teeth because I've said, well, I'm going to jump in the truck and go talk to the landowner. He says, you as a senior member of a company, that's just generally not done, but I have the legal capacity to do that, right?
I think
so that's
It's that good faith thing.
I've been out here more often than not to talk to personal landowners and stuff. And again, a little, just because, right?
Yeah.
More often than not, guys like me get met with a shotgun.
There's
Not so much around here, but.
Well, thank you very much for the presentation. I think that's helped us a lot. I think that kind of leads us to a much better conclusion, I think. So when we get the information and we get it straight from the source is the best way to do it. We've heard 1,000 different, let's face it, I mean, every individual that phones us, we've got a whole bunch of different scenarios out there. So this has been awesome, I think. So thank you very much. And we look forward to working with you. You've got Jacinta's communication and she'll be in touch with you, or you're in touch with her, however that works. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the audience.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen, and that brings us to our number 11, which will be a in camera. Or do you want to do the RV use right now? RV? Okay, let's do the RV one. We'll do 10. Keep it in order, I guess, in that sense. Rich, make it quick. New computer? Your button needs to be pressed, Mr. Fitzgerald. There you go.
I gotta find the right page here. Which page is it?
109.
Sorry about that, Mr. Chairman.
No, you're good.
During site inspections on October 14th, 2021, it was noted that on lot 55, block 2, plan 0702960, there are 2 RV units. Upon review, it was noted that the one RV had a permit which expired in June of this year. No new application has been submitted for the RV, nor was a temporary RV permit submitted for the second RV on the lot. Both RVs have been present on the lot since last summer. Also, during site inspections, it was noted that on lot 11, block 2, plan 0620307, that 2 RVs are present on this subject property. Upon review, a permit was issued for one RV, but that also expired in June of this year, and no new application has been received, nor has a temporary permit been issued for the second RV. Section 110.14 II of the County of Stettler's Land Use Bylaw states that a development permit for using an RV as a dwelling unit pursuant to Section 76 shall be a time-limited permit. And Section 76.1 states an RV may be used as a dwelling unit for a period not exceeding 21 consecutive days, at the expiry of which the RV must be removed for a period of 5 consecutive days pursuant to Section 25.1, which states a temporary development permit is required for such use. Therefore, both properties are in non-compliance. It should be noted that one of the landowners did contact us. They are in the process of submitting an application for the primary RV, but it is our view that there is nothing in the land use bylaw that would allow for the second RV to be stored on that lot. So,
And that's said because it has to be a permanent dwelling to have it as a storage. You can't use the RV as the permanent dwelling in our land use law. Fair enough. Thank you.
in the past, letters have been sent to the landowners requesting they bring the properties into compliance by either removing the RVs or applying for a temporary development permit. It should be noted that even with a temporary permit for the second RV, it is not permitted to store for longer than 21 days without removing for 5. Alternatively, stop orders can be issued or fines can be imposed, giving the landowner a firm date to have the properties brought into compliance by the county, or the county can take action to remove the RVs.
So is there any special mitigating circumstances with either one of these? Just the one phoned in, right?
Yes, so not this property that's on, what was the address? You want-
That was the second one was Marina View, Marina.
Just got a picture of it.
So we have received the permit application for this one, yes.
Okay, and is any other comments on that? We got a permit for this one application, and
So the second property, there have been discussions. There were some issues with the property with the shelter that was brought on there, and then with the second trailer. And through those discussions, the landowner has indicated that they have no intention of applying for a secondary permit or bringing the property into compliance.
they're going to move the RV. Okay, Mr. Stevens, go ahead.
I know the owner of the first property in question, the one that reached out on Monday. I spoke to him a couple times over the weekend, and since he unfortunately had some unfortunate family circumstances. He claims he did not get the letters, so take it for what you will. As soon as I contacted him, he called in the first working day, and the second trailer is actually a brother of his, and he has contacted him to look into alternate storage. So this is one where as soon as they were notified, they seemed to be upfront. They seemed to be wanting to deal with this, not kick it down the road. He thought that the permit was good for 3 years. It's only good for 2. That's where the confusion arose as far as it being expired.
Go ahead, Rich.
Mr. Chair, and just to be clear, when I stated that in the past letters have been sent, I didn't mean particularly to these landowners. I just meant in other issues where the property was in non-compliance, that was the plan, that was the action that was taken. So these people haven't been sent letters. This was the first time we brought it forward, so.
Fair enough. And so the second property that we talked about, this one seems to be a kind of a contentious one because we've dealt with this, unfortunately, multiple times. We've had a number of complaints on this one. So the first property, I think we will have compliance without any questions or issues. So the second property is the one that we are going to have to deal with today. So they have not made an indication that they're removing the second trailer.
We haven't discussed with them, we haven't been in contact recently, just with the way that the tagging system ran this summer. There was a little bit of confusion between protective services as to how, and planning and development, with how to deal with these issues. But going back to last year when this same issue was an issue, there didn't seem to be a lot of cooperation, I'll put it that way.
So the building that I'm looking at in the back there, is that on the subject property or is that the second? Like I'm a little confused because I'm actually seeing in this picture, I see 4 trailers. So
3 granaries
and a big rock.
And you're looking at this trailer and this trailer.
Say that again, Andrew? That trailer and that trailer are on the same lot.
Okay, these 2 would be on the same lot and they correspond pretty accurately to what's on your photo on your other screen, which is, you can see the property and then the shelter and then the left. So you can see the trailer that you can just catch the side of here on the left-hand side is actually this, the neighboring property.
Okay, fair enough. So now my question is, if we go down enforcement route, do we pull both trailers off or do we just pull one to make it compliant? Okay, go ahead, Jacinta.
No, I think what would be required to bring it in compliance would be a development permit application for primary and to allow the second one there for 21 days, follow the temporary development permit process that we implemented earlier this summer.
Mr. Clark.
Yeah, well, looking at this particular one here, we had the issue before where the trailer was removed and that structure just stood by itself. I thought, weren't they supposed to remove that?
Well, I couldn't leave the ancillary structure without a primary.
Oh, okay, because I thought at that point it was to be pulled out, but it's there all the time. You can see it.
But were we allowing the covered deck or were we told them they couldn't have a covered deck?
Was approved.
Okay, as a covered deck was approved, okay. So basically they're in compliance with that other one other than they need to get a permit for it. And the second one is basically non-compliant, it's gotta go, right?
Yeah, I mean, over through the winter, it shouldn't really be stored there because there's.
So what is our flavor from this board? Do we want to send a letter or a stop work order, or do we want to send a tow truck to pull that out of there, or where are you guys at? What are you laughing at? That is what I would like to see, but. Yeah. Where are we at, gentlemen? I'm standing here looking at you. I'm gonna go with Mr. Stevens first.
Well, on the first property, I'm a big fan of trust but verify. He has been very responsive. I think we give him, if it seems reasonable, 30 days to remove the second one. Sounds like the permit application's already been made. So we give him 30 days and then we follow up. I think that one's the easy one of the 2.
I think that's the consensus already.
Yes.
Good. So it's just the second one we're dealing with, Mr. Clark?
Well, it's just with these, let's track it though also so that we don't have this happen again next year and the year after and the year after with either case, because we get so many trailers in some of these lots up there. And that it's reflecting back towards the county too on how we're allowing this to happen. So I think 30 days might be too much in my opinion, but I guess we can give it to them the first time. And if they don't get in compliance or stay in compliance.
Unfortunately, and I hate to be this way, but this particular property owner has been, how I would say, flagrant with the rules in the past. And I'm not sure they're picking up what we're putting down. And I hate to be that way, but we may have to, in this particular case, be very point blank at what we're putting down so they pick it up. Either move the second trailer within 21 days, or we will remove it for you, and you will pay the towing and storage of that particular property wherever it ends up. So now,
We'll find storage too.
I think 21 days is prudent in this case because of, we're going into a season. Sometimes we have people that do that to us. They pick these unfortunate times to do that and think we're not going to act on it, but we can make that happen. So what is your flavor? I'm just giving you my opinion. Mr. Stolberg, where are you at on this?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. It has to be gone because it's not allowed. And to me, it's getting a little old because you give them an inch, they take a foot, they ignore the rules. And I think as a county, we got to decide, is this a campground or a residential area? And if it's a campground, fine, full of trailers. If it's a residential area, gone. I mean, originally that plan was set up so that they could stay in their trailer while they're building, but nobody has any intention of building. So I think maybe we don't need that rule. If they're going to build, by all means, you can stay in there as you build. But if you're not going to build, maybe find a campground.
Okay, Mr. Stevens?
I'm unaware of the previous enforcement and warnings on this one, so I'm gonna have to defer and trust MPC that if there has been issues with this one and I'm not aware of it, it's a little premature for me to pass judgment.
Okay, fair enough. That's a good comment. Mr. McKay?
I think Les summed it up very well there. I appreciate what his comments and that, not knowing a whole bunch about this area, it is, and at times you just gotta be stricter with the rules. You gotta set your foot down. So.
Mr. Gender?
They've shown their defiance in the past, and by the trailer has to be removed. The part that I'm concerned about, say like if they pull that first residence out of there, are they going to leave that whole shit sit there for so long?
Well, here's where the problem lies in that if they pull that first resident out, then it becomes non-compliant. So the trailer that has to leave is the secondary trailer, which is the one on the, and what I'm looking at, it would be my left of the picture. If you're standing in the picture, it would be on the right side. So, and that's the one that has to be removed. The other one is still, to be compliant, or, I mean, ultimately they could pull that one and then wheel this one back in. We don't care which trailer it is. One of the two trailers has to be missing and the other one has to be attached to that particular property. So for us to enforce on would be the secondary trailer.
We've just seen in defiance in the past, the part that I'd be afraid, say like if they pulled out the main dwelling, then if the chicken coop's standing, we'd have to act.
Then they're both non-compliant here. Mr. Clark?
Yes, I agree with this one in particular, but as you look to the far left side of your picture, looking at it, we also see another permanent built covered deck. So we are, whether, with what you're saying, Les, we're allowing it to happen.
Right.
So I do think we need to take a close look. Is this a residential area or is it a campground?
So I think if I can stretch that a little bit, I think we have, we've been in discussion with the people to the far left, and I think they are working at they've been in contact with our development partner, right?
You're referring to the
Far left.
RV on the far left.
Yeah.
That's another property, and it's just a one RV on that property. And throughout the summer, they have been applying for temporary permits for a second unit for 21 days.
I'm just talking about the permanent built covered deck there.
No, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so are we okay with 21 days and making this happen? I'm seeing the nodding of hands. Okay, so can I get a motion to that, Mr. McKay?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, that we write them a letter 21 days, and if not, that will be removed by protective services. Go ahead.
So just want to jump in. If you're going to want the county to undertake mandatory action at the end of the period, really needs to be a stop order.
Okay, so that would be a stop work order that you're making the motion?
Yeah.
And then in that stop work order, 21 days, that thing would be removed. Thank you.
We also have a 21-day appeal period on that. Are you sure you want that as your timeline for resolution? You have 21 days from a stop order to initiate appeal, and then it takes some time to resolve.
if they file a stop work order, then we'll deal with it. If not, that'll be a thing, because that's been our problem in the past. We've been pushing this past.
And we get into the winter and
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just, if they make the appeal, then we don't pull it off. If they don't, then it's a different story, but they have to make the appeal. Go ahead.
Can I also question whether if the county did go in to enforce, we would probably need a court order.
I don't think so on this one.
I don't,
so, yeah, so we.
I'll let administration speak.
Yeah, if I can, we don't need a court order to enforce a stop order. We often seek one because an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. The more minor the enforcement action, things like cutting grass, less liability and risk. Something like towing a movable vehicle probably has a low enough risk factor. If council or MPC wanted to take that risk, that's within a reasonable realm of possibility.
Our peace officers have vehicles towed on a regular basis. They're pretty good at
Off public property.
it. Oh, no, off private property too.
Usually at the landowner's request.
Anyway, that we will leave it at that. Okay, so we have a motion on the table for a stop work order, 21 days. And we are ready to go. So all those in favor, call the question. And that is carried unanimously. Okay. At this point now, we will go to 11, which will be our in-camera section. So we're going to ask everyone to leave. And I'm sorry, it's just you here.
Need a motion if we can.
I'm going to get a motion from Mr. Solver. All those in favor, there you go. You want to throw us live again? Sorry to interrupt you, Esther. You guys can have coffee later. All right, we're back. We're live. We're good? Okay. One or two items left in there. We've got number 13, bio board update. What do you, Craig?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. So I'm happy to say that we have received the Alberta Bio Board application for the fuel pellet plant. It is a fairly large amount of material. It was submitted to us on October 15th. Right now, we are in the process of evaluating it to see if we have all the information needed to proceed. Very much of the information we're looking for is there. And we will be in communication with the applicant very shortly about any outstanding items there may be, so that we can move forward with processing the application in a timely fashion. Look forward to this significant addition to the economy of the county of Stellar.
Any questions for Craig that we have? Good? Okay. Thank you for that. I think it's a great project and hopefully we can make this work. Okay. Number, I guess that was 12. 13, we're going to end on an unlucky number. We have a meeting scheduled for November what? 24th? Which is our RMA convention. I'm thinking most of council, which happens to be similar to this board, will be away. So our council duties take us away from being board members. What would your flavor be to move this back? Was it 2 weeks, Jacinta, or one?
Forward 2 weeks. Will be,
Yeah, forward, not at, yeah, however, depending on which way you're standing.
yes.
Down, kick it down the curve in 2 weeks, so. So we would be looking at I don't have, what calendar you got?
2 weeks doesn't work, it goes under a council meeting.
Well, we could make a Thursday day meeting, if is that plausible for everybody? Oh, all right, we can't do that then.
Which direction are we going?
It's December.
Yeah. Could be December 9th or it could be the 15th.
Does that work for Jacinta, December 9th? Craig?
It will work for us.
Okay, now for board members.
So I was just gonna ask if the intent then would be to not hold the December meeting, or do you just still want to do a?
No, we're gonna save the county and taxpayers tons of money by not having a second meeting. Okay. Larry, that works for you tonight?
Well, it does as long as we get through everything we need to from a planning basis for the end of the year.
Yeah, and then that's typically what we get is we get some late last minute ones and I think we can deal with it. Ernie, does that work for you? The 9th of December. It's Thursday, yeah. It'll be 1 o'clock again. Paul?
Yeah, I'm good.
Mr. Stevens?
Yep.
Mr. Stolberg?
Yes, and I'll make that motion, we reschedule to December 9th at 1 p.m. for our next MPC meeting.
And I didn't ask, but you're good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought there's a lot of people involved in all our meetings, so we have to make sure. It's not just the planning department. It's all about you, Rich. All right, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor? There we go. And Mr. Jen,